On live?
I think we should. Robert Jenrick is here. Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Chancellor of the Reform Party. Robert Jenrick, very good to see you.
Hello, my friend. Nice
Welcome.
to see you.
So nice to see you. Welcome to the new abode. We've got.
Gosh, there's a lot of Mike Graham memorabilia
here. There's a lot of
here.
stuff here. Yeah, I know. It's not like any other studio we've ever been in. We're sticking pins on a map at the moment. People are listening from all points, north, south, east, and west. This is a show we're doing live in Shepherd's Empire.
Very good.
Who the Foo Fighters have just played, by the way. But listen, great to see you.
My pleasure. Good to be here, and I'm pleased your show has been such a success.
It's really going well. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And we've had, Richard Tyson, we've had Lady Cunningham on, we've had many Reform supporters on as well.
Very good.
We are at what seems to me to be a pivotal moment in history for the country, aside from anything else. You've had some interesting things to say about what we should be doing in Iran. So let's get straight to that, because I think it was the day before yesterday you put out a tweet that said, is it time now to stop the hostilities? Is it time to kind of get to grips with this, because ordinary people are suffering? I mean, it's nice to see the oil price coming down over the last 24 hours, but I personally, and I don't wish to make it about me, but I've, like many people, got a pension, and I've watched it just going like that over the last sort of week, losing thousands of pounds. So I guess the question is, at the beginning, Nigel Farage and Reform, I think quite rightly, would have backed Donald Trump's, manoeuvres in Iran. But you're now saying, is it time to now ratchet it all back and maybe talk to the White House and say, can you calm it all down?
Well, look, the Iranian regime remains a wicked regime.
Yes.
And it has done over the decades so many things to harm our own people. Remember, it was the Ayatollah who's now dead, and the IRGC who were supplying the IEDs that were being used to blow up British servicemen in Iraq and Afghanistan. So there'll be families across the country who lost their loved ones as a result directly of the actions of that man and his regime.
Right.
And a world without Iranian nuclear weapons will be a safer world. But I want this war to come to an end now as quickly as possible, because I don't want the UK to be embroiled in foreign wars. And I'm very, very concerned. In fact, the thing I'm most concerned about is the impact on people here in the UK who are already feeling hard up, exactly as you say, before the conflict. Food prices, energy bills, wages are stagnating, under Rachel Reeves, the economy is going absolutely nowhere. And the last thing that they need is for this war to go on and for things to get much worse. And so we're calling for the war to come to an end. Ultimately, it's not within our control, is it? It's the United States and Israel who will dictate that. But what we don't want to see is any more harm to British consumers. And we're pushing the government to take action. Nigel and I were up in Derbyshire yesterday.
Yes.
We commandeered a petrol station to make the point that she needs to cancel the big hike that she's got coming down the road in petrol prices. Are going to go up by 5p a litre later this year as a result of what she's got planned. And we've said, no, absolutely not. Make this another one of your U-turns, Rachel. And if you don't, then if there's a Reform government, our first budget, we'll bring it down ourselves.
Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it? Because, you're not in control of events around the world because you're not in government, but the government doesn't appear to be in control of events around the world either. I mean, Keir Starmer now, with every sort of week that passes, I've been saying since about August of 2024, I can't believe that he's actually still in power. I can't believe that he's still the Prime Minister of this country. It's embarrassing.
Well, he has no influence. He has no influence on the world stage. He tweets out pictures of him doing phone calls and calling for de-escalation.
Right, and walking into rooms and you go, what's he doing?
No one is listening to him. And he has been humiliated. I mean, look what happened in Cyprus. We were tipped off that this was going to happen weeks ago. Then the US assembled the biggest armada of naval assets in the Persian Gulf Mediterranean in a generation. So he didn't have to be, Admiral Nelson to work out what was about to happen. And he didn't move a single ship into the region. And now I don't want those ships to be used for offensive action against Iran, but I do want them to protect our base. And so we had to evacuate the service families into hotels in Cyprus. And then we've got the indignity of Macron turning up like the hero in Cyprus. And understandably, the Cypriots are like, well, can we rely on the UK to protect us and our base? Do we want to continue to host the UK in this important base? So he is weak, he's vacillated, and he has embarrassed the UK. But what we've got to ensure now is we do what we can to actually bring down bills for people here in the UK, which is not hike taxes, drill for oil and gas in the North Sea, stop importing gas from the Norwegian bit of the North Sea, instead of using our own bit for the jobs, the tax revenues and the extra energy security that would flow from that. And we at Reform have also said this week, let's get rid of all of these net zero subsidies that exist at the moment, tens of billions of it, like the money that goes for a heat pump at your house.
And it makes people rich who are running these companies, right? It doesn't do anything for us.
There are people and businesses on the green bandwagon who have profited at the expense of working people. So hard up people paying their taxes to spend billions of pounds on these things. I mean, we'll give you an example. We said we should scrap the research that's going on to so-called carbon capture and storage. This is an unproven technology. It may never work. Even if it worked, it would be removing a tiny percentage of the carbon emissions from the atmosphere. Well, remember, the UK is only 0.8% of the world's emissions anyway. And that is going to cost us, in this Parliament, it's going to cost us £9 billion under Ed Miliband's plan. It's
a scam.
Scrap it. It's a total scam. Scrap it and use that money to bring down people's bills and taxes here in the UK. We say we're going to get rid of the electric vehicle grants that are out there at the moment, and these bans, these mandates on what cars can be manufactured and what people can buy. People should be able to buy whatever car they want. If they want to buy a diesel car because they think that's the car they want, or the most efficient car, or they live in a rural area and it's the best car for them, let them do it. At the moment, and then I'll give you a telling fact about that grant. It's available for 40 different vehicles. Only one is assembled in the UK. So taxpayers are paying for that grant to help businesses elsewhere in the world, in the US, in Europe, in China, to assemble cars at the expense of cars being manufactured in the UK, British jobs. That's wrong. We're going to get rid of all that net zero madness, and with the money that we save, help Brits instead.
Okay, going back to where we are at the moment, if you are living in a rural situation, and particularly those people in Northern Ireland who get forgotten about, if you are relying on heating oil, right, Rachel Reeves got up in Parliament the other day and said, we're going to have a meeting about it. We can discuss whether or not we should subsidise people.
Well, we've heard absolutely nothing since then.
But I'm slightly, as an old-fashioned conservative with a small c, I'm sort of slightly squeamish about the government subsidising people's energy bills. I didn't think it was a good idea when Rishi Sunak did it, and you were part of that government. What would Reform's policy be if you were in government now and people were faced with, paying £700 for 500 litres of oil as opposed to, £300 a week ago? Would you subsidise them, or what would you do?
Well, I'd much rather do it through tax cuts, getting rid of these green levies and taxes that add to the cost of bills than these massive bailouts.
No, but I mean, if people come to you and
Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss did, which cost hundreds and hundreds of billions and had a massive lasting impact on inflation, the public finances are shot as a result of it. So I'm
but what I'm saying
is
if a family of four who haven't got a great deal of elasticity of money, they're suddenly faced with paying £700 instead of £300. What would you do for them today if you were in government?
Well, the first thing we said is about fuel. We would act now to reverse this increase in fuel. So that's not about oil, but it is about those same families in rural areas.
That's about
filling
petrol
up, but it's helping people across the country, particularly people,
but this is about
people in
that
rural
need to heat
areas.
their home and they can't do it because they're frightened of paying the money.
Well,
so what do you do?
Well, it's not an easy situation. I'm not in favour of a massive bailout to people, but it's one of the reasons why we've got to get the war to come to an end, isn't it? Because the longer this goes on, the more that we're going to see these spikes. Oil prices do seem to be coming down somewhat now.
They have come back down to something like,
I think they're more like $70 or $80 a barrel now. But nonetheless, if you're filling up this week or getting your oil tank filled up this week, that's a huge cost. I mean, we've seen people where it's 100% more expensive than it was the last time that they filled up. So I don't, let's see what Rachel Reeves comes forward with in that respect. But I'd much rather do it through getting rid of the taxes than just another big splurge of public spending.
All right. And to go back to the Iranian sort of, war scenario, you just said that, you don't want British ships perhaps or British, assets involved in attacking Iran. But we played actually 2 days ago an interview Richard Tice did with Al Arabiya out in Dubai, in which he said that Reform would back US policy more or less willy-nilly, carte blanche, if Iran was being attacked by America, we would join in. So
I think what Richard
seems like a slightly different.
I think what Richard
point.
was saying was that we should allow the bases to be used, because that's been a cornerstone of our defence, having this partnership with the United States. And many of these bases are joint bases, like the one in Diego Garcia that Starmer wants to give away to Mauritius. And we should be allowing the US to use it. We should have frankly done that from the very beginning. But Nigel, I was sat with him at a press conference just after the war began, was clear, no British troops on the ground. You know, the idea of boots on the ground was completely, we don't have any armed force at the moment, so
well, we don't.
You know, whose boots would it be? But I don't think it's in British interests to have us involved in offensive action. To me, Reform is a party for working people. It's not a party for war. You know, we don't want to be embroiled in wars far off in the world. It's not to say that there may not be value in those conflicts, and if the US can get rid of nuclear weapons in Iran, then that is doing the world a favour, including helping our own security. But I don't think Britain should be deploying our troops and unnecessarily endangering our servicemen and women. We should be very cautious for deploying British servicemen and women in operations overseas, and that is the approach that Reform would take.
So presumably you wouldn't go along with what Boris Johnson said a few weeks ago on Laura Kunzberg's show about sending sort of peacekeepers, as he called them, to Ukraine.
I thought that was irresponsible, what Boris said, and ill thought through. The idea that we should be sending British servicemen and women to a war zone, or at least a conflict, a country where a war is still ongoing, even if it's parts of the country that are far away from the front line, seems to me to be unwise. And particularly given we have so few servicemen and women, so little equipment, if you are taking those people away from the other duties that they are doing, you know, for example, in places like Latvia, you know, in NATO countries on the border with Russia, then you may find that you actually weaken NATO, not strengthen it. And I do think there's some chutzpah from some of these people. And obviously I was part of the last Conservative government, so I'm not, I don't completely absolve myself of criticism, but these prime ministers allowed our armed forces to be depleted to this pitiful state that they are today. I mean, the last Conservative government spent £150 billion on foreign aid and yet cut the defence budget in real terms. That is a dereliction of duty. You know, let's be honest, maybe it's with the benefit of hindsight, but let's be honest about what happened there. And we must never be in that situation again.
Okay. And you've been in Reform now for several months. I mean, time flies.
Well, it's not quite as long as that, but yeah, a couple of months.
Time flies, right? I mean, I've lost all track of time. It's a bit like during COVID, you kind of go, what happened then? Was it, how many years was it? 2, 3, 4? How are you finding your new role? How are you finding working within a party which is obviously inexperienced, described by many as a kind of a sort of a cult of personality behind Nigel Farage? I'm not one of those who thinks that, by the way. But, you know, I also see the way that people are treated who are from Reform. There is a kind of, I would say, nastiness about some of those who oppose you. You know, they don't just disagree with you. They call you Nazis. They call you right. Like, you know, how are you finding being part of Reform?
Well, it's been very positive so far. Thanks, Mike. I've enjoyed working with Nigel.
Yeah.
You've known him for longer than I have, actually. I found him to be extremely hardworking, honourable, somebody of real conviction, and the energy and momentum that there is within Reform is incredible. You know, to come from the Conservative Party, which, let's be honest, feels like a dead party at the moment. It's certainly in the places I represent, like the East Midlands, it feels irrelevant now. And the choice is so clearly between Nigel and Reform and Labour, and maybe Labour in coalition with the Greens. So it's very inspiring to be part of something that's got that sense of energy and momentum. And it's just basically a group of people who've come together because they're worried about the state of the country and they want to fix it and turn it around. You're right to say that there are people who demean Reform, who describe them as, you know, us as populists or even worse, bandy these labels around. But they're really demeaning the British people because they have to ask themselves, why is Reform ahead in the opinion polls? Why has it been ahead in 250 opinion polls? If not that it's tapping into a very deep sense in the country of frustration, disillusionment, and a desire for change. And those people in the mainstream media, in the old parties who say that, including people who, you know, I worked alongside for many years, they could not be more out of touch with the real view of people out there in the country who you give voice to on your programmes.
And do you think that there is a kind of change of the political system going on? I mean, I'm going to ask you in a minute about the Green Party, because I worry a lot about where they're coming from, who they're appealing to, how so many people appear to be buying into their kind of what they're selling, which seems to me to be pretty hate-filled, kind of nasty, based on toxic.
Well, they don't seem to talk about green issues very much anymore. I mean, I never agreed with them on net zero, but at least they had a position which some people could support. Yeah. Actually, what you're seeing is a pretty nasty sectarian type of politics coalescing around the Greens. You saw a lot of that in the by-election up in Manchester the other day, and that's a bleak place for our politics if we go down that route and they begin to win these constituencies in the country where people are voting predominantly on religious lines, and we've got to fight against that. It's come out of massive complacency because the Labour Party thought they could take voters like the Muslim voters for granted, and they found that they can't.
Well, I've said the only thing that's green about them now appears to be the Hamas bandana that they wear around their heads as they go into each of these issues.
But the big danger, Mike, I mean, we mustn't laugh about it, because the next election, I think, is going to be a choice between reform or a coalition of the left.
Yeah.
And if you had, say, Starmer's been booted out and replaced by Ed Miliband or Angela Rayner, and they're in coalition with Zach Polanski, if you think the state of the country today is bad, just imagine what that's like. I mean, people will be leaving the country in droves, and those of us who would never dream of leaving will be in despair. So that is why I ultimately chose at the beginning of the year to get behind reform, to rally behind Nigel, because I think it is the only chance to fix the country.
Okay. I know you've got to rush off. Final question, because somebody asked me to ask you this. Is there any way that you can force an election before 2029?
Well, no. I mean, ultimately the choice is the Prime Minister and the Labour parties, but it's not impossible that something might happen earlier. If Starmer goes, you then get somebody else come in who's even worse, and through sort of failure, exhaustion, and the financial markets taking fright because they just have no confidence that this government is able to pay its way, that it tips into a general election beforehand. But, I mean, maybe we have to hope for that. But that election will come about in the worst possible circumstances for the country, and the state of the country will be even more severe than it is today, which is why we've got to fix things. And I'm not a pessimist. I think that we can actually turn this around. Yes, there are some things that are very bleak at the moment, but can we get the economy going again? Yes. And I've seen examples around the world where there's catch-up growth, get the right people in, create a sense of excitement, win investors back into the UK, give people here a break from the bills. Then I think you can get things going again pretty fast.
Well, it happened here in the 80s. I mean, I was part of it. Couple of quick comments. Do we have time? If we have them. I'm not sure whether they're good or not. We'll see. But, £300 billion on benefits, says Benny. I mean, something's got to be done about the benefits bill, hasn't it? Because that is absolutely...
Yeah, and I do not want reform ever to be a party of welfare. We're a party of Alarm Clock Britain, by which we mean people who are getting up early, listening to your programme on the way to work. Those are the people we should be supporting, not people who are choosing to be on benefits. That's one of the reasons why we changed the policy on the 2-child benefit cap to say, like, if you're a responsible parent who's, say, choosing to stop at 2 kids because you can't afford to have 3, 4, 5, 6, then you shouldn't see the person next door to you living a life of Riley on benefits, getting thousands of pounds for that. So reform will be for working people, not welfare.
Okay, brilliant. I think that's it. We haven't got any more. I'm sure there are more, but we'll get into those later. Robert,
very good. Well, nice to see you, sir.
Nice to see you.
And good luck with the programme.
Well,
Glad to see it's doing so well.
I mean, we're very happy. We've only been doing it for 2 months, really.
But you're getting massive views.
We're getting massive response, big numbers. We're the biggest YouTube breakfast show in the country after 2 months. We're starting a new channel, which is going to involve people like Kelvin McKenzie, Russell Quirk's going to do a show. We've got all sorts of plans with Guido Fawkes possibly joining us. There's going to be...
Great. Well,
we're going to be creating
and it's nice and cosy in here, I have to say,
And what's your view of herons? Because...
not a big fan of herons.
Really?
Yeah, I've got a pond.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. The reason we've got herons here is because I went... In the midst of my kind of, trauma, as I was leaving talk and not sure what I was going to do next... I suddenly walked out, and I live not far from Canary Wharf, and there was this massive heron sitting on a fence. Just
well,
looking
you
into the
obviously
river.
don't have fish, or else you wouldn't.
No,
you
I
wouldn't
don't.
Be such
Well,
a
I
fan
live in
of
a
herons.
flat in London, right? and my the mother of my children said maybe it was sent to you, and then it turns out that herons are actually a harbinger of good things and new beginnings and all of this. And I thought, this is interesting. And I looked into all the sort of cultural heritage of herons, and around the world there are sort of rumours and stories about them and legends. And I thought, this is a really interesting. So I sort of happened to mention.
So the heron is now the Mike Graham symbol.
Yeah, and so people keep sending herons in. So we've got we're going to have to get a new studio because this one's full of herons. But listen, really good to see you,
Lovely
Robert.
to see you
Hopefully
too. Yeah,
see you
good
again
luck with
soon.
everything.
Say hello to the guys at Reform,
certainly will do.
and we will be back after this with Susan Hall from the London Assembly.